When the fuckwipes at the FCC decided to repeal net neutrality, the principle that states ISPs cannot charge more or throttle or discriminate based on customers or content, basically the principles that suggest ISPs have to treat all communications on the internet fairly, when the FCC decided to kick that to the curb, fuckwipe in charge, Chairman Ajit Pai, assured Americans that everything would be fine, that none of us have to worry about corporations in America discriminating, disrespecting, being unfair to customers. Because, of course, American corporations are well known for being totally fair and trustworthy. Yeah. He assured us that the Federal Trade Commission could handle it, that would protect us from things that net neutrality was already doing a decent job of protecting us from anyway, or at the very least, the best job it could do. According to Pai, ISPs wouldn't exploit the repeal of net neutrality to take the piss, that the FTC would be more than capable of stopping throttling and blockages on the internet. Well anyway, surprise fucking surprise, the FTC is not all that capable of protecting you from ISPs basically getting up to shenanigans. Incapable and unwilling. You see, the FTC will look at unfair cases of discrimination, but what is fair and what is unfair? According to FTC Chairman Joseph Simons, ISPs can block and throttle internet communications so long as they're upfront about it. So long as they tell you they're gonna screw you, then they've got license to screw you. FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr notoriously wrote for the Washington Post and justified the repeal of net neutrality by saying things that we were worried about: blocking, throttling, the use of fast lanes where you could pay more to get decent internet access. All of that would be a violation of antitrust laws, which the FTC could police and deal with. Well, unfortunately, while talking to the National Press Club, Joseph Simons thinks the internet works in exactly the same way as grocery stores work, and therefore things like discriminatory price offers, coupons, they're all equitable to an ISP fucking with your internet speeds to make more money. I'll just read what he fucking said.
Ruffle. Paid prioritization is a type of price discrimination which is ubiquitous in the economy. For example, think about when you walk into grocery stores. Some customers get lower prices because they cut out coupons. Others might get a seniors discount. Others might get 2% off with their credit card. Yet others get discounts because they have a loyalty card with that supermarket. Those of us who go to the afternoon movie matinees will generally pay less, and those of us willing to show up at a restaurant before 6 p.m. might get the benefit of a lower-priced menu. And of course, let's not forget happy hour discounts. Yes, let's not forget. Heaven forbid we forget the happy hour discounts, you fucking knobhead. You fucking fool. I read that whole thing while holding up an imaginary cigar in my hand. I just figured that was the best thing to do. He fucking goes on. He goes on. Think about the express toll lanes on Interstates 95 and 66. Amtrak's airless service to New York. Our transportation authorities think that allowing people to pay more for faster services would be something beneficial. Of course, what this dick stump fails to note is that in most of those situations there's this little thing called competition. The idea of selling you groceries, of selling you basic important goods, is not bound by one store. Things like coupons and price discounts and happy hour discounts are there to draw business because there are lots of other businesses trying to get those customers as well. And at no point, at least in my experience of shopping at grocery stores, has, say, Kroger offered me tomatoes that it's pissed all over, that the manager and staff have just gathered around, just pissed all over this shelf load of tomatoes, right? And then said if I paid more for the tomatoes, I could get some without piss on them. At no point while shopping at Kroger has anyone made me sign a years-long contract binding me to the store's mercies. It just makes no sense. The analogy makes no sense. It sounds like something that Simons woke up that morning really fucking proud of. When he came up with all of these fucking pointless allegories that don't mean anything and have no relation to each other, he's probably
probably so proud, like, I've got him with this, but it makes no sense. And that out of touch weirdo, because if you're gonna compare coupons at a grocery store to ISPs throttling you and offering fast lanes, you're a fucking weirdo. That out of touch weirdo is the chairman of the organisation that we were assured would protect us. So basically, as long as ISPs disclose what they're doing, so long as they're not deceptive about the throttling they partake in, they can throttle away. I wish other things worked like that. I wish I could phone up the fucking governor out here and be like, "Oi, Phil Bryant, you fuck, I'm gonna eat like 10 of the weeds drugs today, but I've disclosed it so it's alright." Now that's a pretty weak analogy, but coming off the back of what Simons has said, it looks like fucking poetry. Throttling and blocking is not per se illegal, that is to say not inherently illegal. So it's not whether content is being throttled or blocked that's a problem as far as the FTC is concerned, but whether or not that throttling is deceptive. And as Simon says, it wasn't even good. That's not even worth... Anyway, as Simon says,
to determine whether particular instances of throttling are deceptive, we would first evaluate what claims an ISP made to consumers about their services and how those claims are supported. We would look closely at any relevant research and evaluate the study's design, scope, and results, and consider how a study relates to a particular claim. To evaluate whether a practice was unfair, we would consider whether the alleged throttling had countervailing benefits and whether there were reasonable steps consumers could have taken to avoid it. We would also consider consumer injury, the number of consumers affected, and the need to prevent future misconduct.
All of this is to say that the FCC has attempted to downplay the sheer amount of power internet service providers have, while dressing up the power that the FTC has. Of course, even at the time of net neutrality's repeal, most people saw through that bullshit, and we're just getting more confirmation that the whole thing was a kick of sand in the eye to normal people, that net neutrality was fine and didn't need repealing. And Ajit Pai's series of utter bullshit lies that came out of his mouth about how having no net neutrality was better than having it, how it would make the internet better and more fair for all of us, are as flimsy as his attempts to get himself over as some sort of charming comedy man. You're not funny, you're not charming, you're not a character, Ajit. You're a fuckwipe. Now, of course, the repeal of net neutrality has always been bigger than gaming. It affects YouTube as a whole, where you're watching this, presumably. It affects your social media. Of course, it affects your streaming of films and television, Netflix, Amazon Video, Hulu, all of that. But as far as gaming goes, this is extra concerning, and it's extra fitting, I think, that the repeal of net neutrality has come up in the conversation again lately, so soon after Google announced Stadia, its game streaming service, soon after Apple announced Apple Arcade, a game subscription service. More and more video games are relying on steady internet connections. Most of the live services now have always online connections. Games being sold digitally has become normalized now, even on console. A lot of people I do it. I download most of my games. I don't buy the physical copies anymore. And if ISPs have the green light to fuck around with your speeds as much as they want and to sell you fast lanes, I mean, even back when net neutrality was hanging in the balance before the FCC kicked it away, people were bracing for the concept of video game fast lanes, specifically gamer tier internet packages, as if people who buy and play video games aren't exploited enough at the publisher level, let alone the ISP level on top. But we could very well be looking at that. Certainly the FTC doesn't seem bothered about it being done, so long as we get told up front that is what's being done. As it stands, down here in the south, unless you've managed to get some of the very limited fibre access out here, which is only available in select locations, you're more than likely stuck with Comcast. Comcast is a big bucket of cold shit. And that's true in far too much of this country. This country's broadband infrastructure is a joke. The de facto monopolies mean that companies do not really have to worry about competition, so have no inspiration, no desire to improve their services, because if you're stuck with them, they've got your money regardless. And even paying for better services is a con in most regards. I've been on Comcast's business plan. It's bullshit. I have had many days where I was unable to conduct a business on their business plan. I've had whole months where it was running so poorly, every aspect of my business became harder to conduct because it didn't fucking work. Let's just call this whole farce, the repeal of net neutrality farce, what it is. A bunch of Republicans with a shitload of money looking after each other. Good luck with Stadia, Google, because a lot of us right now have no real reason to believe it'll work for us. Not without us paying more money to companies that already take far too much fucking money for far less of a service than it should be providing.